A marinade is basically a seasoned and often acidic liquid in which foods are soaked in for a period of time. Aside from adding flavor to the food, a marinade can also have a moisturizing and/or tenderizing effect. In some cases, it can even prolong the shelf life of certain foods by a day or two. Most marinades consist of three components: an acid, a fat, and some seasonings. The first component is the acid. Common acids used are a variety of fresh citrus juices, wine or alcohol, vinegars, or even cultured milk products such as buttermilk, yogurt, and sour cream. Acidic liquids are used for two reasons. 1, they add delicious flavor, and 2, they help to tenderize meats by weakening their muscle tissue. As the muscle fibers become tenderized by the acid, the meat is more able to absorb the flavors of the marinade. However, it is important to realize that an acid is only capable of tenderizing the surface of the meat up to 1/4 of an inch, so do not rely on the acid in a marinade to tenderize the meat completely throughout. The best way to ensure tender meat is to buy a tender cut and/or use the appropriate cooking method. Note: when using a marinade that contains certain tropical fruits such as papayas, kiwis, pineapples, or figs, it is important to not over-marinate. The acids in these fruits contain particular enzymes that will make the meat mealy or mushy like this. The second component of a marinade is a fat. Fat has two purposes in a marinade. First, it keeps the food moist during cooking. This is especially helpful if the ingredient is lean or if you're using a dry heat cooking method such as grilling. Second, fat is capable of transferring flavor very well. This is because most aromatics and spices are fat soluble. This means that fat will take on the flavor of aromatics and seasonings much better than water. Marinades that do not contain any fat will be less powerful in flavoring the food. Olive oil is a common fat to use as it tends to emulsify more easily with liquids. However, more neutral-tasting oils such as grapeseed, peanut, or canola will add moisture without overpowering other flavors. In certain marinades, even nut or flavored oils can be used to add a distinct layer of flavor. Fats in the form of cultured dairy products such as yogurt will not only provide some moisture, they will also provide a mild acidic component at the same time. The third component of a marinade is the seasoning. While the liquid will help to flavor the food, additional aromatics and seasonings are also added to enhance the flavor. Aromatics such as garlic, ginger, onions, and chilies are very common. A variety of herbs, spices, citrus zest, or condiments such as Tabasco, horseradish, or mustard can also be used to flavor a marinade. This is where you can get really creative and add a variety of seasonings to suit your tastes. When creating marinades, you can get inspiration from many sources. For example, this marinade was inspired by the popular Caesar cocktail. It contains basically all of the same components as the drink itself. Yet it pairs extremely well with proteins such as chicken and beef. Salt is another seasoning that is often added to a marinade. It can be added in its crystal form or in a liquid form such as fish sauce or soy sauce. Salt helps to open up the pores in meat, which will have a brine-like effect on it. In turn, the acids and flavorings will be able to penetrate and tenderize the meat more deeply. Though some marinades do not call for salt, it is generally beneficial to add some. Meats that have been marinated with a bit of salt will be more flavorful and somewhat juicier once cooked. Note: a marinade does not have to contain both a fat and an acid. For example, many ingredients are marinated in only a fat and seasonings, which provide both moisture and flavor. Depending on the flavor profile you are after, the liquid or acidic component is not mandatory. Likewise, many ingredients can simply be marinated in an acid and seasonings. The moisture can come from fat within the ingredient, not an added fat. Either way, a marinade can only penetrate food to a certain degree. For example, we purposefully over-marinated the steak. Because the dense muscle fibers are very tightly bound together, you can see that the marinade was not able to fully penetrate the meat all the way through, even after 3 days of marinating. This means that the flavor from a marinade will generally be more topical rather than internal. This also applies to vegetables that have a hard texture because it is difficult for a marinade to penetrate them. For this reason, vegetables are often finished with a bit of the marinade, or warmed through and tossed in a marinade for another layer of flavor. In contrast, the texture of softer vegetables makes them more capable of absorbing the flavors of a marinade.